Audio Jungle.
Last week we popped into the Chiefs. I hate Chiefs fans. Don't care. You guys can keep coming at me all you want. You guys are wrong. The Chiefs fans are. I can't imagine. I couldn't imagine being as ungrateful of a fan base. They're like worse than Philly at this point, where you guys are literally the best team in the NFL, have the best player, and you guys still find a way to cry and complain about every little thing. So, hey, it is what it is. So, Chiefs fans, keep it coming. Go Cards.
And they're going to be good. Like the Chiefs are going to be just fine.
We made a video where we said they play in an easy division. They're going to win 12. Noah said 12 games. I said 10 to 11, and they're going to easily make the playoffs. And everybody acted like we said that they were the worst team in the NFL.
They're going to have 7 wins.
It was literally ridiculous. So today we are going to be starting off with, let's start with the Jets. So the reason that I picked the Jets is I already made a video on them, but I kind of wanted to loop back, have you talk about it as well, and then we can round it out for our 2024 prediction for the Jets, both of us. So the 2023 results, the overall record 7-10, third in the AFC, home record 3-5, away record 4-5. They had some big key wins last season. Even with the state of the roster, they beat the Eagles, they beat the Bills, and they beat the Texans. Obviously, they didn't make the playoffs and had key injuries to Aaron Rodgers. Do you have anything to add up to this point?
I just wanted to throw in there that they did also have 4 losses by 1 possession. So, they were in a lot of those games too. And normally what happens is if you're sticking around in those games and are losing by 1 possession, the following year, you tend to get those games to bounce your way. So that's another thing kind of to look forward to.
Some positive regression.
With this Jets team. Like we saw it happen with the Giants and the Vikings the last 2 years. They both ended up winning 10-plus games and got some good bounces. And then the next year, we kind of saw them take a step back and not win as many games and not get those friendly bounces that they did in the previous year. So on top of not having Aaron Rodgers, they were in a lot of games.
Definitely. And that just speaks to the defense. That defense is absolutely disgusting.
Elite.
But before we get into that, let's go for the key losses on this roster. I was looking obviously you lose Zach Wilson, the 2 overall pick. I mean, that has to hurt a little bit. You lose Bryce Huff. It is what it is. He was kind of a rotational piece for their edge rushing core. He came in on strictly edge rushing downs. It's not like he was a 3-down guy. Dalvin Cook, who's way past his prime, and then CJ Uzomah. No names really jump off the page to me unless if you see something.
I had all those guys, but if I was looking through this roster correctly, did they lose Jordan Whitehead?
No,
they did not. Okay,
so I think they did actually.
I don't know what's going on with the depth chart on ESPN. There's some funky things happening, but Jordan Whitehead wasn't on there. And if he's not on the Jets, then I would consider that a big loss. He led their team in interceptions last year and was their starting safety. But
at the same time, they get Tony Adams back, who is a big guy, and you get Chuck Clark back off of injury. So I think
right, but I just felt like it was worth noting that they lose their number 1 guy as far as interceptions goes. But it's not like I think they're going to take a step back. I just felt like it was worth noting if he's no longer on the team.
No, definitely. I'm still bullish on that secondary. I think Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed's the best cornerback duo in the NFL. Chuck Clark, getting him back off of injury is big. And then Tony Adams was a name that emerged for them last season who they were really high on, and he was an instant starter. So key additions to this roster, they signed CJ Mosley back, Jake Hansen, Leaky Fotu, Javon Kinlaw, John Simpson, Tyrod Taylor for backup quarterback. I don't hate that in case if anything happens to Rodgers. You signed Mike Williams, the big wide receiver who's a great deep threat. Solomon Thomas, Jalen Holmes. You traded for Hassan Reddick, which I thought was a good move. You signed back Ashton Davis. Austin DeLucas and pick up Elijah Vera Tucker's 5th-year option. And then you draft Olu Fashanu, you get Malachi Corley, and you draft Brandon Allen, who's going to be a great number 2 running back. And who was the other lineman that I'm forgetting?
They got Tyron Smith.
Cowboys. Yeah, they got Tyron Smith too. So excuse me. I know that hasn't been fully healthy his entire career, but what a list!
You probably slot him in as the starting tackle.
What a
at
list,
least week 1.
What a list of names though that we just kind of went over that they were able to retain or add to this super talented roster already. And the one that sticks out to me the most out of all of that, I mean, obviously Hassan Reddick, but drafting Olu Fashanu, Malachi Corley, and Brandon Allen, I feel like that's Braylon Allen. I feel like that's a really slept on trio of rookies. You're not asking Braylon Allen to be a number 1 running back because you have that Breece Hall. He's going to be like that bruiser type. You get Malachi Corley, who is going to be a great slot receiver and compare it with to kind of fit in with Garrett Wilson and Mike Williams. And Olu Fashanu, you get a guy at left tackle who you have all the pieces around him to give him that correct mentorship. And I think he'll be an impact starter for them probably.
Yeah, I had those 3 guys as well as pretty much everybody else that you named. I really liked what the Jets did as far as getting those 3 guys. And even if Olu doesn't come in right away, and say something happens down the road and one of their starters gets hurt, he has a little bit of time to kind of get used to it and be a part of an NFL locker room. Could he come in and start right away? Probably, but having the luxury of getting a top 5 offensive lineman in the draft and not necessarily having to start him right away might not be the worst thing for them. But who knows with how bad and injured their offensive line has been the past couple of years. So I think we'll see him at some point starting, but I love that pick, obviously. I think the Braylon Allen one is a really nice, like another quiet move too, because they already have Breece Hall, obviously, and you're very high on him. I think you said he was the best running back in the league.
I think out of Christian McCaffrey, I think that it's an argument to be had that he's top 3.
Yeah, for sure. But I think having him as like the number 2, like you said, is huge. And I think he's 20 years old. Like he's a young buck, and he's got a lot of touches left. Which is kind of surprising because I feel like in Wisconsin, they tend to run those running backs into the ground. Mm-hmm. But at 20 years old, you're slotting him in alongside Breece Hall as your 1-2 punch in the backfield. I like that. And then Malachi Corley, I think you mentioned in your video, and we've talked about this before, that Rodgers doesn't really love rookies, but rookie like pass catchers. But if you're able to put him in at wide receiver 3, and you get a healthy Mike Williams and Garrett Wilson goes out there and does his thing, that's not a bad trio of guys to throw the ball to if you're Aaron Rodgers.
No, not at all. And I mean, you still have guys like Allen Lazard. You still have like Xavier Gibson, guys like that who are going to be a part of the rotation as well. But I just like Malachi Corley. I think probably you won't see it in the beginning part of the season, but I think probably after the bye or midway through the season, you start seeing like him have like a positive impact on the offense.
Yeah. As him and Rodgers start to build that chemistry and in-game chemistry, obviously you can, the practice chemistry versus in-game's a little different. We all know that, but yeah, I completely agree.
Weaknesses. The one thing I feel like we kind of have to point out is like Rodgers missing minicamp. That was obviously like a very big topic of discussion. I don't know what happened with that. I don't know what the big deal is. Rodgers seems to not give a fuck. The team doesn't seem to not give a fuck. So I don't know why I would care.
Yeah. I mean, if they're not making a big deal out of it, and then I don't know why we should. I think the one thing that's more important to note is the Hassan Reddick side of things. Like they traded for this guy and he's just gone ghost. I'm pretty sure that there was just a picture of him up like 2 weeks ago in Japan, cosplaying as an Asian. So I don't know what's happening there, but
I
If
think
he's
that
not like ready to go, then I think that's probably an issue.
I think he'll be ready to go. I mean, he wanted a new contract with the Eagles, so I don't know why the Jets
Wouldn't get started on that.
wouldn't think that. So I'm gonna go out on a limb and assume that something will get done about that. More weaknesses, health. You need everybody to stay healthy
100%.
this season. Obviously, you brought up the O-line being a bad point for them. Brees Hall tore his ACL. You need him to stay healthy. And obviously the big one, Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles. You need him to stay healthy as well. So I think health is a big part of this. And do you have anything to add about this? Because I have two more weaknesses or one more.
I mean, just their offense as a whole was like absolute bottom of the barrel in pretty much every stat. Like I have a couple stats here.
Yeah,
Their offense was 29th in points per game, 31st in yards per game. Third down, they were 32nd. Red zone scoring, they were 32nd. Touchdowns per game, they were 32nd. So like I also kind of take that with a grain of salt because they were in quarterback like hell all year, basically. So just by default, if you're getting Aaron Rodgers back, you're going to expect all of those numbers to jump. And they still won 7 games somehow, even with their offense being that awful. So the offense is definitely a weakness, but like I said, kind of with a grain of salt.
Definitely. And then the last weakness that I have here is just their coaching. I think Saleh is so unserious. I think he's one of my least favorite head coaches in the entire league. Great defensive mind. Obviously, he's got this defense like on a stick. As for like the rest of the feeling, it seems very chaotic. The way that he handled everything last season, it was just like something new every single week. And I just think that he's not like a good face of the franchise and a guy that can stand up in front of the media and like really instill that like that faith that you're like,
Confidence
okay,
in your
this
fan
guy,
base, confidence in your team.
yeah, this guy knows what he's doing. The next thing that is a big red flag for me is Hackett. They wanted to get rid of Hackett during this offseason. They weren't able to. There were some weird reports that there's just like tension between Hackett and the team. Hackett at this point, I'm shocked that he has a job anywhere after the Denver situation. And then he came here last year, coached a bad offense again. They tried to get rid of him. So
Something had to have happened with Aaron Rodgers being back and being healthy, that there had to be some type of conversation like, hey, if I'm playing, this is who I want as my OC.
And
that's my only guess.
I do have one more weakness as well, and that's just flat Aaron Rodgers in general. If it goes bad, it's going to go really, really bad because they set this whole thing up just for him. And if he's not playing, I don't think it works. So that is probably all the weaknesses that I have laid out, but we can go into like what makes them special as well. So
I had one other thing as far as weaknesses go. Like, obviously we know Garrett Wilson is an elite receiver. I think they need somebody. I think they need to figure out who the second option is going to be. And I think they seriously need to figure out who's going to step up and take over that like wide receiver 2 role, just because Mike Williams is coming off an injury. And yeah, he's been decent, but I don't know, like, if I had to like really be particular about it, I think that not having like a solid for sure second option, or like kind of having a question mark there, is something worth noting as well.
Yeah, I definitely disagree with that. I think you can look across the league and there's not a lot of teams that have like 3 solid options or whatever. I think.
I'm not even saying 3. I think it's Garrett Wilson, and then it's a lot of question marks outside in that receiving room.
I don't know. I mean, we just watched Mahomes win with like literally no wide receivers.
Right, but this is we're keeping this just hyper specific to the Jets.
Yeah, and I think that you can compare I think that the Jets skill positions are days better than anything.
I'm only talking receivers. I think the running back room is better. I think the running back room is fine. I think they just need to figure out who that second wide receiver is that's going to consistently be there and show up. That's really all. That's all that I meant by that. It's not like a room. It's not like their entire skill position as a whole. I
mean,
think they
if you
just need to
look
figure
at,
out if Mike Williams is going to step up and be that number 2 guy behind Garrett Wilson, or if it's going to be Malachi Corley, or if it's going to be Xavier Gibson, whatever. I think they just need to figure that
if
out.
you look at every Aaron Rodgers led offense, like pretty much over
It's
his
super
entire
heavy.
career,
Right.
You're not really expecting high level play from like a number 2. You need supplemental play. And I think that the room that they have built is exactly that. And I think Garrett Wilson is legitimately that special.
I think he is too. All I'm saying is, if I'm being very particular and super nitpicky as far as weaknesses go, I'm not like sold on Mike Williams being a reliable second option because he can't stay on the field.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But if he is on the field, I think he's probably one of the best second options you can probably have.
I'm fine with that. Like I said, I'm just being super picky here because he hasn't been able to stay healthy.
Yeah. So what makes them special? Obviously, you're getting back a Hall of Fame quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. That can't be stated enough. I know people don't like Aaron Rodgers for whatever reason, but he's one of the all-time greats. He still plays at a high level, and he will be good next season. If he's healthy, there's pretty much not a doubt in my mind. Next, Breece Hall. Breece Hall's a top 5 running back in this NFL. He is so good. He's dangerous. He's a dangerous pass catcher. He's a dangerous runner, and he can do a lot with when the ball's in his hand. Next, after the season, Garrett Wilson will 150% solidify himself in that top upper echelon tier of wide receivers. People just haven't seen it yet. He hasn't played with anybody, and he's been extremely impactful already. So I'm excited to watch him have a breakout season this year, and I need Rodgers to stay healthy, because if not, we need to get Garrett Wilson out of New York. Lastly, absolutely, their defense. They have, and I think that like as a full unit, I think they have the best defense in the NFL. Personnel, coaching, they're so talented. They're so dominant. They're just like a dangerous unit. Like you said, they had 4 losses by 1 possession. Their defense pretty much willed them throughout the entire season last year.
Yeah, from last year, their defense was pretty much top 10. They were top 10 in, top 12 in all of these stats that I'm about to name here. Points per game, they gave up 21, ranked, that's 10th. Yards per game, they were ranked 2nd, only gave up 292. Third down conversion is the only thing that they were ranked outside the top 10 in, and it was like 37%. Red zone scoring, they were 7th in red zone scoring, and with only allowing teams to score 49% of the time, and then 9th in touchdowns per game. They only gave up two per game. That secondary is elite. The defense as a whole is honestly so scary if you're an opposing offensive coordinator trying to game plan.
And you get everyone back. You have everyone back. You add depth at the defensive tackle position with Fotu and Javon Kinlaw. You get rid of Bryce Huff, who was an impactful player for them, but like I said, he was playing only on rush downs. You get somebody in there like Hassan Reddick, who's a legitimate 3-down player. I just think that like as keeping the entire defense together, like getting guys healthy and then adding people as well. Like, what's not to like about this defense?
Yeah. It's pretty much, and Jets fans would, I'm sure, say the same thing. Like, it's all going to come down to that offense. And if that offensive side of the ball can stay healthy, the defense has been phenomenal. They've actually stayed very healthy as well. Knock on wood. Hopefully everyone keeps it that way. But if they could have any type of pulse on the offensive side of the ball, this team probably would have ended up winning like 13 games last year.
You would have to think so. You would. Yeah. You literally would have to think so. That's a lot of games to win, but they won 7, and we stated this, and I said it in the last video, like their quarterback room was like, what was it last season? They were throwing guys when Zach Wilson didn't work. They were throwing guys out who don't play football. It was bad. they didn't have a good plan of attack. And I think this year that if this guy can stay healthy, it'll be a special season.
Yeah, and even if they do end up in a scenario where Tyrod Taylor has to play a week here or there, that's much more manageable and a much better option than throwing Zach Wilson out there week in and week out.
No doubt.
Who else did they have come in and play?
I have absolutely
Mike White?
no idea. I don't think so. No, he was on the Dolphins.
Was that 2 years
season.
ago? That was 2 years ago, I'm thinking of.
Here, I'll Google it real quick. Oh, they did have Mike White.
Yeah, because I thought the reason Mike White was on the Dolphins this year is because of those couple games with the Jets last year where he played well.
It was 2022.
He
was It was Zach Wilson, Trevor Siemian, and Tim Boyle.
Yuck.
Just a bad group of
the group of real estate agents at quarterback.
So lastly, we're going to give our 2024 predictions. I've been high on the Jets. I think on paper, this team is the best in football on paper. And obviously a lot needs to play out to see this, but the way that their offense is built, the way that their defense is built, there's no reason this team shouldn't at least make the AFC Championship. But they're my early Super Bowl pick. I think I'm standing by that. Like, if I had to like get put on a lie detector test, I'm not going to say the other thing that you would usually say in this situation, because I don't know how YouTube would react to that. But if I had to pick a team right now to win the Super Bowl, I would say it's the Jets. I mean, they just seem like the most complete team, and they could be nasty. And I want to see Rodgers win another one, to be completely honest. So obviously, I think they win 12 games, 11 to 12 games, Jets to win the division. And like I said, they're my early Super Bowl pick.
Wow. I actually have them at, I'm not sharing any of my like playoff predictions yet. I'm just keeping it as what I think their regular season record's going to be. And I've got them at 13-4.
Okay.
I think looking through this schedule, they have a nice stretch. Obviously week 1 against San Francisco is going to be obviously fun for everybody. But after that, they go Tennessee, New England, Denver, Minnesota. That should be 4 wins. They should start off 4-1.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think what it's going to really come down to is just how good this Miami team is. And we're both super low on Miami, but they have a stretch at the end of the season that's Miami, Jacksonville. It's at Miami, at Jacksonville versus the Rams, at Buffalo versus Miami. That's kind of, if Miami's a good football team this year, that's a tough stretch to end your season.
Yeah.
But like I said, who knows what we're going to get with the Miami Dolphins this season. And that kind of leads into like my next point of, if they're bad, really they only have to worry about the Bills in that division. And I think the Bills will be good, but I don't have them at 13 wins.
That's completely fair. Well, so I think it's safe to say that we're both extremely high on the Jets then.
I'm surprised that you only had them at like 11 or 12 wins.
I mean, if you look across the NFL as of right now, like we don't really see the teams like eclipse like the 13-14 win mark at this rate. Like it's pretty even across the board. Anybody can beat anybody. So I'm a little bit more conservative when I'm giving out. Like, I think on the high end, like if you're an elite team in the NFL, I think you win 12 games with how the NFL is set up currently.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
So obviously,
but I'm pushing it to the limit.
No, I like it. I do like that. But even like if they don't win like 11 to 12 games, like that's a super successful season. Like what? The Chiefs were 11-6 last year. So a lot of those teams who are like that we look at as like really good, like live in that 10, 11 to 12 range of wins for the regular season.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
All right. So like I said, Jets to win the Super Bowl. Noah's got them to win 13 games. Where I guess me and you are Jets fans this season.
I guess we are. I guess we're Jets fans.
Audio Jungle.